So here's kind of a fun adventure that turned into a bit of a conundrum and mess for myself and Sound Tools. No good deed goes unpunished. And this has to do with Neutrik connectors, the black shell connectors. Historically, those connectors have been black chrome, and I've got one here. And the black chrome it's kind of got a dull finish, and if you look inside of it, there'll be some shiny metal in there. A metallic, there's like a silver part. It doesn't coat, they haven't plated the inside. But regardless of that, and if we touch the black chrome, we can see that there's continuity. It's a metallic finish. Turns out this black chrome involves chromium-6, and chromium-6 is a carcinogen and not really good for the human race and the critters that live on the planet. So to deal with that and to comply with RoHS and REACH, Neutrik has switched to what they call a KTM coating. Now this KTM coating is a beautiful kind of a satin black, and it's a really nice looking color, and it's a high quality finish. But in the switch over to this KTM, this more environmentally conscious coating, we no longer have a conductive shell. Is that a big deal or is it not a big deal? Well, it's hard to say, and it really depends on the application. Let's take a look at what's going on. With XLR connectors, we have the option to add that fourth connection. There's pins 1, 2, 3, and then that little metal tab that connects the shell. When you plug an XLR into a mixing board or a piece of gear, that shell, if it's metallic and conductive, then it will attach to the gear and provide a shield over all those wires. If it's non-conductive, it'll stay floating. This is not that big of a deal for XLRs because we have 3 good solid pins in an XLR, and they're all identical. Your signal wires and your ground wire have identical connections. This is not the case for etherCON or etherCON. I always say it wrong when people tell me. With etherCON, we have all of our connections are these little wipers. They're little tiny wipers that wipe onto the gold tabs. Let's go ahead and pull one apart. Take a look at it. So there's these little gold tabs here, and on the female connection, there's little gold tongs that ride right up on top of those tabs and make the connection. And it's surprisingly simple and surprisingly good. For the ground though, it doesn't use the same type of connection. Unlike an XLR, the shielded ground is dealt with by this metal housing. Now not all RJ45s are shielded, but the ones that are have a metal housing around the jack here. Now this metal housing establishes a ground with the female connector from this metal wiper right here. Now there's 2 metal wipers on the female connector, but they're both not active. Let's go ahead and check that out. See on the meter that this wiper is a dummy wiper. It's just there for tension and alignment. But this wiper here, it's on the left, if the tab is up, the release is up, is your ground connection. So that one wiper performs the critical ground and shielding task. For most applications, just having an okay ground is good enough because it's not a signal carrying wire. All it has to do is make a reasonably good connection and it'll shield that cable and everything will be fine. But for analog over cat, if you're running phantom power, even though the ground is not signal carrying, it is carrying the current from that phantom power. So any aberration, any scratchiness on that ground will alter that 48 volt phantom power and show up as signal or noise. And if you've ever heard 48 volt phantom power crackle down a mic line, you know that's a treacherous and unpleasant experience. So for analog over cat, we really want the best ground that we can get. Additionally, for high EMF environments where these electromagnetic fields are inducing on the cables, having a better ground is preferable, and having those shells cover the cable all the way through is desirable. So how do we get this really good ground? Well, with the older cables, with these connectors, when they plugged in, not only does the wiper connect to the metal side of the RJ45, but also the shell attaches as well, because this little metal wiper there is double-sided, and the back side of that actually connects to the shell. We can test that. So we'll go ahead and put that on there, connect that to pin 1. And we can see that the shell is connected even without this RJ45. So there's 2 paths to ground. This is really good. This is a wonderful redundancy. And you drag these things through the mud at a concert, you're winding up cables. And if you're using this for analog over CAT, you get some dirt and corrosion or whatever on this metal housing. That's going to not be desirable, and it's going to weaken your ground, and you might get some crackling. So having that redundant ground is definitely a plus. So what do? Now we've got these new connectors that are black and very high quality. Let's go ahead and try that. So at Sound Tools, since we specialize in making the highest quality analog over CAT products, as well as cables that are able to carry signals farther and every detail matters, we ran into a conundrum. Do we switch vendors? Do we find somebody else? Do we start from scratch with someone else that's using the chromium finish? That was undesirable. We don't want to be a part of that. I fully support putting less pollutants. How important is it that this connector is black versus the pollution and issues? But we do want it grounded. So for Sound Tools, what we decided was we are switching to the silver version because these are conductive, and they will allow us to have the best of all worlds. We'll be able to continue using Neutrik and the quality products that they make, as well as keep our products in line. Nothing has to change except for the connector shells. So we actually went back and talked to Neutrik and arranged for 500 or 1,000 of these silver nickel shells to be shipped to us, and we swapped them out on all our cables. So all Sound Tools cables are now switching to the silver ones, if you're wondering about that. If you do have a Sound Tools cable that has the KTM finish and you want to switch to a silver shell, we will send it to you for free. There's not many out there. I think we have less than 30 or 40 cables that went out with the KTM shell before we caught it. And it won't really make that much of a difference in most or almost all applications, but we really wanted to make sure it was perfect and thought you might find it interesting. This does not only apply to the etherCONs, but it applies to everything. Every single XLR, every metal housing that Neutrik makes is now going to be non-conductive. So if you need conductive shells, use the silver ones or find an alternate source. There are these product change notifications, and I will put these up at the end of the video, which show all of the various shells that have been changed. And they show how to differentiate between the two. And the black chrome plating is gone. You know, it's kind of ugly. I won't miss it that much. The new silver ones are really, really nice looking. Black is nice. It is nice to keep these things dark and not shiny, but we got to go with quality first and foremost. And I thought you might find it interesting. It's really fascinating how the slightest alteration snowballs into a big mess. You know, they come in, they're like, okay, we're gonna make this RoHS. We want to get rid of the Chromium 6. Okay, that's a good idea. We're gonna make this RoHS. Okay, what are we gonna do? We're going to find another plating. Oh my goodness. Dive into, can we paint it? Can you plate it something? Is there a way to plate it without the chromium? Are you able to come up with a different black coating that is conductive? And finally, a paint. Which paint? Does paint chip? Is it going to fall off? Do you have to bake it? Does it have other problems? And finally you spiral everything down and you end up with a solution. And then you got someone like Sound Tools that goes, whoa, my goodness, we can't use that. Help. And they helped us out and got us some new connectors and we're back on track. So, just something fun. Cool, cool.